Hi, everyone. I'm Jamie Vaughn with CCM, and I'm here today with one of our best buds, Matthew West. How are you, Matthew?
I'm doing great. How are you today?
I'm doing well. How have you and the family been holding up through all of this?
Holding up is probably the operative term. Um, I mean, we're doing fine. We're very grateful, very thankful to be healthy, and it's been a beautiful summer in Nashville despite the pandemic and the all the craziness. We've just tried to make the best of it, and we don't know what's going on in our world right now, but we're trusting the Lord. So my daughters, keep everything fun. Even the bad days are better with my two girls,
Yeah,
bringing joy into our home. So I'm thankful for that.
yeah. And you've kept all of us entertained and also ministered to with your quarantine time every day. I can tell you, I appreciate it very much.
Well, thank you. That started early in quarantine when we thought, well, maybe this will go on for a couple of weeks, and we started doing we were talking about just before we went on, we were talking about setting your do not disturb. And
Okay.
I have so many devices, like I'm like I could turn do not disturb on one and then forget the other, and then it's ding ding ding
Yeah,
ding ding.
it's fine. It's fine. It's life. It's not a big deal.
Look, it's life, exactly. But we started doing these quarantine quiet times, just going live at 11:30 Central every day. And I tell you what, man, just the way it just wound up being a really neat way of connecting to people despite the distance. Despite the touring being canceled. And the biggest thing that I noticed is just how many people would take it upon themselves to like submit a prayer request. We would have 3,000 comments a day, and most of them are like, hey, could you pray for me in this area of my life? And it gives you some perspective in a hurry. So what's interesting is I did these daily devotions with the goal of encouraging others, but they turned around and it wound up encouraging me, because when you look at other people's problems, it gives you a new perspective on your own, really. And so it's now we do it every week. I couldn't do it every day. I don't know how radio show hosts do it every single day, but now we do every week on Wednesdays. We go live. So I'll go live at 11:30 Central and sing a song and just read some scripture and encourage people, and we take some prayer requests. It's pretty special.
Oh, I love that. Now, we're here today to talk about something very special for you that you have been wanting to do for a while and finally had the time to do.
Oh yeah.
You want to tell everybody about it, or you want me to?
Yeah, so I'm going to become a Major League Baseball player, and I just I picked you guys to be the ones to deliver the announcement, mostly because none of the sports stations thought it was newsworthy. So plus they also knew there was no chance of that happening. So that's my April Fool's joke in what are we in August? Uh, no, I launched a podcast officially. It's real, and it's called the Matthew West Podcast, and it's been something I've been working on pretty much in secret for the last several months. Just I didn't even tell a lot of people, in the music industry that I was doing it. I was just kind of just working and had this dream of putting together a show that would just continue to be a voice of encouragement and really be a continuation of those quarantine quiet times. I just really can tell, okay, people just are in need of some good news right now. They're in need of encouragement, hope. I mean, we're always in need of that. There's never a bad time to fill our ears with positivity. So it's finally released, and I'm super excited. We launched the podcast with 3 episodes all at once, so people can go and get a good feel for what the show is going to be like every week, every Wednesday.
So, what are topics or guests that you have coming on?
Well, mostly we're going to be investigating unsolved crimes.
Okay.
Yeah, we're going to be unearthing conspiracy theories about UFOs and things like that. And then we're going to, all throughout the fall, we're just going to talk exclusively about highly divisive political topics.
Okay.
Doesn't that sound like fun?
It does. Are you going to find out if Carol Baskin actually killed her husband?
Yeah, we're going to do a full Tiger King investigation. No, I'm just kidding. None of that's going to take place. I joke because, there's plenty of other podcasts for that. If you're wanting to go unsolved crimes, there's tons of that. But it's so in the podcast world, just like the news, it's filled with opinions and all that stuff. And this is not that podcast. This is, if you love a good story, if you want to be brought closer to the Lord in your spiritual journey, to be strengthened, if you want to add a podcast to your quiet time and really just be challenged in your life, that's what this podcast is about. It's all about the power of a story. In every episode, I interview one of my favorite influencers, like artists, athletes, authors, people whose books or lives have just inspired me, so already we launched our podcast with an interview with one of my best buds, Mark Hall from Casting Crowns. Had a really unique conversation. He and I have written so many songs together, like Nobody, that's been on the radio this year. And then we launched an interview with Sadie Robertson and her mom, Corey Robertson, which was so much fun. And as a dad of girls, I wanted that episode to take place as quickly as possible because I got so much wisdom, because I want my daughters to grow up to be like Sadie. And I know a lot of other parents out there are trying to figure out, how do I raise my kids in this crazy world? So really cool stuff. I've had already just the interviews that I'm doing right now. I've had an Olympic gold medalist, and the list is long, and really cool stories. And because I know these folks, we have these really interesting conversations, and so it's a lot of fun. You also get to hear from my dad in every episode. We do a special segment at the end of every show called Dadvice, where he just sends the listener off with an encouragement, some scripture, and he's a pastor. He's been a pastor for 40 years, and so I didn't always want his advice as a kid, but these days I see how valuable it is. So a lot of good stuff going on, and every week a new episode's going to come. It's really cool.
That's fun. Now, where can people find this podcast?
They can find it wherever they listen to podcasts. So Spotify, Apple, any of the places, all the things. So wherever you listen to music, most likely you can listen to podcasts, and wherever you listen to podcasts, you can type in the Matthew West Podcast and subscribe. And like I said, it started with 3 episodes. One of the cool things we're doing is at the end of every month, we do a special 4th episode of the month that's called the VIP Q&A. And we basically give the listener a chance to be part of that episode. They can share their story. They can call in with a question, or just ask, whatever they want. They can talk about whatever. And so that might wind up being my favorite episode, because it's about the listener. It's about them saying, here's where I'm at. Here's what I'm going through. Here's what God's showing me, and maybe share about how a song has impacted their life. So pretty cool stuff.
Yeah. So right before the entire country shut down, you launched a new album as well.
Yeah.
How's that been going?
Well, it's funny, I was feeling so good about 2020. I bet a lot of people were. I mean, the thought of I remember New Year's. I remember just thinking, wow, 2020. I remember when 2020 seemed so far away, and thinking, wow, it's going to be a brand new year, a brand new decade. I mean, anything is possible. The sky's the limit. My wife and I talking, we got a good feeling about this new decade, this new year. And I put out a record on Valentine's Day in the new year, and I thought, I'm going to call it Brand New, right? It represents just all things new, and this new season, new year, new decade. And then the world completely fell apart, and I was like, gosh, 2020 doesn't feel so brand new anymore. It feels pretty old. And, our touring was canceled, and you really can't promote an album when you're not touring. So it's been an interesting thing, the song The God Who Stays was off of the first album. And so I think it's just been a season of just trying to trust in the Lord and go, okay, God, you've given me a voice, and I don't believe you gave me a voice that is subject to, just going on tour. There's not just one way that God wants to use our lives. And too many times we get one dimensional. And so this has been a season of me going, no darkness in this world is going to quiet the voice that God's given me, because I want to be a voice of hope. And now more than ever, that's exactly the kind of voices that this world needs to hear. What you do, the way you encourage people all the time with CCM, what we hope to do as artists, now more than ever, just because touring shut down, man, we got to be louder than ever and pointing people towards the hope they can find and the help they can find in Jesus. So I think that's why the podcast kind of came about now. It's why I've been writing a bunch of songs and just feeling a real creative flood happening in different ways, and just constantly being amazed at how that's how God is. Like, do you know what I mean? Like, God didn't stop. The Israelites weren't just stuck in, when they needed to cross the river Jordan. You know what I mean? It was like, when God parts the sea, right? He parts the sea. Was it the Red Sea?
Yes.
I mean, you think about that. You think about, like, if that, you put that in our terms of quarantine right now, it's like, we don't just stop and wait until, this passes by, until the water's calm. It's like, we serve a God who parts the sea and makes a way where there was no way. And I think that's been like a real inspiration for me of, like, I'm standing at the foot of the sea, but my God can part the waters. And so he's been doing some incredible things in my life on a creative level, but then also on a family level. So, every trial has some beautiful things that can come out of it. And I've seen that over and over again in my life. I don't know why I always forget that, but I'm thankful for that. God gives me that reminder. And the more you trust in the Lord, the more you start to look around, and you start to look for the beauty in the middle of the storm. You start to look for the blessings in the middle of the battles.
Yeah. Oh, I will tell you, off of that album, Truth Be Told, I think was the hit me the hardest. And I think that's something that we need to be very open and honest with each other, that we're not okay every day.
Mm-hmm.
And I thank you for writing that song.
Well, thank you. That's very kind of you. I kind of feel like that's a song for right now, because I think it's gotten harder and harder for us to pretend that we're holding it all together, because none of us know. None of us have a clue. We can't look to our political leaders right now, because, every time we do, the reports are different and conflicting. We look to the science experts. We look to, you put your faith in the stock market, good luck. You put your faith in politicians, good luck. You put your faith in, it's just, even watching, like, my kids' school, trying to decide what to do. And, like, even the experts, you can tell, like, nobody knows. And so we do a good job most of our lives pretending like we know, pretending like we've got it all under control, pretending like we're all right, we're all okay. Show up in church, you smile, you shake hands, maybe never let people really see what's going on. And that's part of my life. I'm a preacher's kid. I've gotten really good over the years. I know how to put on a show. That's what I do for a living. And it just, I don't know. That's no way to live life. I've developed that skill, and I don't want that skill. I don't want to be good at, like, getting on an interview like this and going, okay, I'm going to show this person how great of a Christian I am, because I can quote this scripture, and it's like, you know what? Honestly, I have, like, royally screwed up during the pandemic. Like, I've had days where I let my anxiety get the best of me. I freak out. I don't handle the stress in terms of how I handle with, treat my kids and things like that. Like, I'm having these days where it's like, as much as I'd want to pretend that I'm knocking it out of the park, there's plenty of days where I'm just full on striking out. And so that's what that song's about. Just maybe just letting the pressure fall off your shoulders and going, man, can you start giving yourself the grace that God has already given to you? You embrace God's forgiveness, but you never let yourself off the hook. That's no way to live, and nobody's perfect. So if we can acknowledge that, maybe we let somebody else in, and maybe we begin to find some true freedom in that.
Yeah. So you said during all of this time, you've had a lot of, like, a spurt of creativity. So I always like to ask the artists that come on, what is the favorite lyric or song you've ever written?
Gosh, that's a great question. I would say, so there's well, I'll start with Truth Be Told, because there's some, from a songwriter standpoint, like, look, I don't know if that song's a hit. I don't really care. I just feel like it just needed to be said. And those tend to be my favorite, lines, songs, when I'm proud of the lyrics and what they say. And so I think there's elements of that song that just, there's one line that says, there's a sign on the door that says, come as you are, but I doubt it. Because if we lived like that was true, every Sunday morning pew would be crowded. But didn't you say the church should look more like a hospital, a safe place for the sick, the sinner, and the scarred, and the prodigals like me? It's just talking about I don't know, I just that image of like that old church sign that says "Come as you are," and then you people walk in the church and they feel like they're being judged. And I don't know, I'm proud of that song, like for lyrically what it says. But and then I would say a line that always, like when I'm singing it, it speaks to me, and it says, grace is a kingdom with gates open wide, and there's a seat at the table just waiting for you, so come on inside. And that's from a song called Broken Things that has always really been part of my story. Just kind of, do I believe that God can use even the broken parts of my life? And that's what that's about. So those are the two lyrics that come to mind when you ask that question.
Okay, so flip that question around. What song or lyric do you wish you had have written?
Wow.
And it can be anything.
Gosh, I'm trying to think. There's so many good songs. I mean, some of the classics to me, like if I could have written, like the old song, I see trees of green, red roses too. I see them bloom for me and for you. And I think to myself, what a wonderful world. Like some of those songs that like defy generation, they defy genre. They're just like a slice of American history. Those are the songs that I'm kind of drawn to. One of my favorite Christian songs that I always have loved is a Matt Maher song called Lord, I Need You. Just that worship song is like, there's something so simple and beautiful about the message of that song and the way that it marries with the melody. That's a great song.
Okay, so as we wrap up our interview, is there a message of hope that you want to leave for our viewers?
Always. Yeah. I think, kind of what we've just shared about, I think if I could leave people with anything, and this is what I think is ultimately the theme of my music, it's the theme of the podcast, it's the theme of how I feel like God's called me to use my voice, is to encourage people to acknowledge or to recognize that there's great power in their story. And that power is only discovered when we realize that we are not the author of that story. When we realize that there's an author of our story, and he's our creator, the one who made us has the plan for us. And yet we spend our lives in this tug of war, trying to take the pen out of God's hands, trying to write our own version of our story. And I don't know about you, but that's never worked out well for me. And so my hope in the music I deliver, and like I said, these interviews and the podcast, it's like, it's all about somebody listening to it and going, wait a minute. Okay. So I'm in the middle of a story right now. It's the story of my life. Do I like how it's going? Am I happy with it? Am I the one trying to control the direction of my story? Or do I want to be one of those brave people that just finally let the truth be told and acknowledge that, wait a minute, I can't tell the story I want to tell with my life. I want to trust in the Lord. I want to let him write the ultimate story. And that's going to be the most meaningful life that we live. So I think that's my hope for people right now. And a lot of people are hurting. And I think a lot of times the pain in our lives can be used by God. C.S. Lewis calls the pain in our lives a megaphone. It's a megaphone that God uses to get our attention. And when he gets our attention through that pain, we have two choices. We can drown out the megaphone, and we can continue to try to dig our own path and make our own way and control what we can control and fix what's broken. Or we can choose the path of surrender and allow God to step in and be the rightful author of our stories, because he's the only one who's going to part the water. He's the only one who's going to make a way. He's the only one who's going to give us strength that we need today in this crazy world with the heavy weights on our shoulders. He's the only one who's going to lift that weight and help us live a better story with our lives. He's going to help us through. And that would be my encouragement and message of hope, to your listeners today.
Matthew, thank you so much for stopping by and talking to us at CCM. We're very excited about the podcast. Remember,
Thank you.
anywhere that you get your podcast and listen to Matthew. And also check out the new album, brand new. I
Yeah.
promise you will love it.
The old new album.
The old new album. So
I think I'm just going to re-release it next year and call it brand new. Let's try this again.
do it. Oh my goodness, it's perfect. Perfect. All right. Well, we'll talk to you soon, Matthew. Thanks so much.
I enjoyed it. And hey, enjoy your time in Florida. Soak up that sunshine, all right? Get to the beach. Even if you got to wear a mask, you still get the sand in your toes.
True. All right.
I'm glad we were able to do this today. I appreciate you.
Thank you.
All right, see you later.